We're just a few hours away from what's being called India's biggest ever tax reform, GST, which kicks in at that special session of Parliament tonight at midnight with the ringing of a gong. Now, we've been talking to a number of experts to try and understand exactly what it means, including people from the government. Let's try and get a sense from industry as well, which is waiting for it with considerable anticipation and in some cases some concern as to what specifically the short-term impacts of that could be. But let's go across to none other than Adi Godrej, one of the most respected industrialists we have in the country, to get his sense of what to make of it. Mr. Godrej, thanks so much for joining us. So, few hours to go from this. It's being hyped as India's biggest ever tax reform. Would you agree with that description of it? And what would be your take? Does it justify, and is it really a major step that's being taken to get everyone together, the politicians together, the centre and the states together, and push through this reform?
Yes, I think it's a major reform, perhaps the biggest ever tax reform, and I would say after the 91 liberalisation, perhaps the biggest economic reform. I think it will add tremendously to the GDP growth of the country and create a lot of other efficiencies, which in time will add up to make India a very fast-growing economy.
Right. Well, Mr. Godrej, I just had Professor Vivek Debroy and others talking earlier and saying that, look, let's face it, what is actually coming into effect at midnight tonight is not a perfect GST. It's a result of a lot of compromise and consensus that had to be there to get it through. And they are saying you should view this as the start of a process, not a destination in itself, which means that given it is got compromises in it, it may not have all the gains that you would have got with perhaps a simpler GST with a single or two or three rates. Would you agree with that assessment as well?
Well, it's difficult enough in a democracy like India's, multi-party democracy, to get a strong legislation like this passed. To expect it to be perfect in every respect, first of all, the definition of perfect is very difficult to come by. But I'd like to compliment the government in doing an excellent job in not only spearheading this reform, but in, by and large, getting most things right, especially the rates. The big thing about GST is it can be extremely beneficial if the rates are reasonable, as now they are, and that will create not only strong GDP growth, strong demand, and therefore stronger consumption will lead to stronger investment and overall benefit. There will be a lot of other benefits like logistical, etc., which our present taxation system did not work in favor. Help India's exports, because now almost all the taxes that are paid in inputs will get refunded at the time of export. So it will help export growth also very substantially.
Right, and I think, the point which is being made, which is probably perfectly correct, is you don't have to wait for something to be correct in every respect. You should start it off, do it, and then you can keep on improving it as things go forward. But from the point of view of Indian industry, what to your mind will be the significant impact of this, both in the short term and then medium to long term?
As I mentioned, Vikram, I expect that the GDP growth of India will increase by about 1 to 2 percentage points, which will clearly create additional demand in future, which will create additional output, production, investment, etc. So overall, it will help the country's efficiency and growth very considerably.
Your people must have been sitting with you, and I mean, it's interesting to get your perspective on this, because you, of course, operate in just about every state. When your people have been looking at what it takes for a company like yours and others which you've been associated with to actually get GST implemented, what are they telling you? Is it because there are forms that will have to be filled out and the rest of it, but perhaps less than what they were doing already? How would you rate the comparison? How much of a headache is it going to be to do the GST formalities as compared to what was happening earlier?
Vikram, nothing very complicated, nothing too complicated. And in a country like India, especially now with IT being very advanced, I don't think it's complicated at all. And the IT platform the government has put in the public domain will allow small businesses also to almost automatically conduct everything. So I think this is being exaggerated by people who don't understand the issue very well, and I don't think it will be complicated at all.
All right. From the point of view of companies, not complicated, and the dealers and others whom you've been speaking to, have most of them been able to figure it out also, whatever they need to do?
Well, they would not fully realize what they need to do. It is their advisors who will do that. But as far as we are concerned, all our distributors, wholesalers, etc. are ready for it. We will help them. We've conducted some training sessions. And the government has also made the rules very flexible in the first couple of months. So in case people are delayed or there are some errors in the beginning, I don't think it will be a major issue.
Right. One last question. Given the rate of GST as there is right now, and I think we've been hearing again from a lot of people that eventually they might try and push to try and bring it down to, a couple of rates. But we are where we are right now. We've got these 5 rates and then a cess and then a 0% rate. But given the rates as they are right now, would you expect in the next few weeks and months for prices by and large to be where they are right now, a little higher, a little lower? What do you think the impact is going to be on prices for, well, especially for the goods that most consumers are using?
Overall, I feel the GST will be disinflationary. I think overall it will have a disinflationary effect on the economy, and therefore, hopefully, once it is in place, the RBI will soon see sense in reducing interest rate, which will be an additional advantage to the economy overall.
Disinflationary means you're saying that prices are actually going to come down after GST, including in the short term. What would be the reason for that? Is it the rates, or is it because you don't have cascading taxation? So as a result of that, prices are lower because people aren't paying the effect of tax on tax.
For several reasons. One is costs will come down. Input tax credit will be available now on everything you buy, which was not so earlier. And by and large, in many cases, the rates are also a little lower. At least they are not much higher, except on some goods which the government is trying to reduce consumption of, such as cigarettes, etc. So overall, yes, I would say it is slightly disinflationary, but certainly not inflationary.